4th, and this is Franklin County regular board meeting. All three commissioners are present in the chamber. Would you please, I'm calling the meeting to order. Would you please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, with that, the agenda is the approval of the April 13th County Commissioner meeting minutes and the April 20th Commissioner meeting minutes. Is there any changes, corrections, or additions?
No changes. No changes.
Okay, consensus to approve. Next on the agenda is a certificate of appreciation for Director of IS, Kevin Scott. Kevin? Dear Mr. Scott, on behalf of Franklin County, I'd like to express our gratitude for your faithful service as a Franklin County IS Director from January 8th, 1991 through April 30th of 2021. Your contributions to the county and for your years of service have been invaluable. Please accept this certificate of appreciation for your dedication and professionalism. We hope you know just how much we respect you and have valued you as a colleague. You will be missed in Franklin County. Commissioners, would you like to add to that?
30 years, that's quite a commitment. Thank you for your time. It's great to see that 30 years of commitment and work to Franklin County. It is much appreciated. We hate to see you leave, but I'm jealous. Get to retire at a young age. So it has been. Thank you so much.
So Kevin, I probably worked with you as long as anybody, and I'll just say that some people measure a person's time here by how much time, especially when it comes to matters of IS. I measure it by how many times the net is down or not down, how many intruders get in or don't get in, how much malware we deal with. And of course, I talk with my contemporaries in all 39 counties, and I hate to see you go. It's a little selfish because I hear their horror stories and we don't have those here. And I think that's largely due to your leadership and your team. So thanks very much for the time, but especially for the outstanding performance. Thanks.
And Liz, would you like to come to the mic? I think you have something to say?
No, I don't.
Well, I'd like to present this to you, Kevin, and I want to thank you, sir. You did a great job, James.
Go ahead.
All right. Next on the agenda is the closed record hearing on the Columbia Bluffs subdivision. And at this time, I'd like to open the closed record hearing on the Columbia Bluff subdivision.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. My name is Nicole Stickney. I'll be presenting this report on behalf of staff this morning. The Columbia River Bluff subdivision is an application to subdivide 3 parcels, which were previously short platted, into several single-family lots. The lots are all 1 acre or more in size, and the land is zoned rural residential RR1. With that introduction, before we proceed any further, I would remind you that this hearing is subject to the Appearance of Fairness Doctrine and the Open Public Meetings Act. And as such, now would be an appropriate time to disclose any ex parte communications, conflicts of interest, or anything that could appear to be a conflict of interest on this matter.
No conflicts real or perceived, and no ex parte communication from me.
No conflict of interest.
No conflict.
Okay, thank you for that. So to proceed, this application has been reviewed by the Planning Commission, and they have recommended approval based on some formulated findings of fact and with some conditions of approval. Staff has also recommended that approval. I do want to highlight that this did go through a SEPA environmental review. Typically, we wouldn't have to do a SEPA review for this number of lots. However, the amount of grading and the amount of earthwork that was going to be done for this project did trigger SEPA. Once we issued a SEPA threshold determination of non-significance, a DNS determination, in the middle of March, there were some findings and mitigation measures under SEPA for this project. The Pasco School District did appeal, and so we had to postpone the public hearing before the Planning Commission. However, the district later withdrew the appeal. They've come to a private party agreement, and so this was able to move forward without any SEPA appeal hearing since that was lifted. At their rescheduled Planning Commission meeting, the Planning Commission, as I mentioned, heard and considered testimony in their open record hearing. At their hearing, the Planning Commission voted to forward a positive recommendation to you. There are 6 findings of fact and 6 conditions of approval with some correction of typos that we had to address, and those have been incorporated into the resolution. However, it's been brought to my attention that there is one other issue in the findings of fact. It's a typo that we need to correct for the record. Under findings of fact, section 6, subsection A1, or A2, excuse me, it says that the proposal effectively adds 6 new homes. Oh, I did mean to say that. It adds 6 new homes because there could be 3 originally, because it's a short plat, and this is for a 9-home authorization. So the delta is 6 new homes.
So there are 3 existing homes?
It's entitled currently for 3 homes to be built because there's
okay.
3 lots. We're
Okay.
going from 3 lots to 9 lots.
Okay, so
That was my thinking.
I saw 6 additional homes, 9 lots. And I
It was
just
a
thought
good catch.
Typo, but so the 3 are not existing homes. They're
No.
just previously authorized, permitted.
That's correct.
Okay, makes
Yeah,
sense.
once I
Thank
read
you.
it, I was like, oh, that is
Okay,
intentional.
good, thanks.
So the resolution, as far as we know, it has everything perfected in it in terms of any typos that were there before, which I regret, but we did get those fixed. But now I see at the very top, it says preliminary approval, and I apologize for this, for subdivision 2021-01 Columbia Bluffs to subdivide approximately 10 acres into, and it says 7 single-family residential lots. That should be 9. We're going for 9 lots here, so we'll have to make that correction to the top of the resolution. After that, with that correction being done, it does refer to the 9 lots being entitled in the staff report. Just to go back a minute, the location of this subdivision is generally located east of Columbia River Road. It's south of Sagemore Road and west of Larkspur Road. So it's in an area, as I mentioned, that was previously short platted, but then it subsequently changed hands in terms of ownership, and they want to do a few more homes than was previously authorized with a different configuration. A road is being moved, as you'll read in the staff report. And excuse me, a little bit smaller lots, but they're all still going to be over 1 acre in size. Another significant change between what the short plat proposal looked like in this subdivision is that they will have on-site fire suppression available. They're going to have a tank with water there, so that also helps create the new configuration. We don't have to have as much distance between structures for fire suppression purposes since that requirement is already met. The plat map for the subdivision is on the last page in your packet. It'll show the configuration of the 9 proposed lots as well as a concept of how the wells may be configured and the road that I mentioned that will be changed. So it'll be moving, there's a current driveway on the east side, the gravel driveway, that'll be removed. It'll be moved that was on the west side. It'll be moved further east, so up the hill, and the houses will come down from their driveways. They'll have great views there. So I'm available to answer any questions. Again, we are recommending approval, and the Planning Commission has done the same. Thank you.
Commissioners, questions?
Nicole, your last comment about the driveways, so the driveways would be uphill from the residences?
Yeah, so when you drive into the development, you'll proceed east, you'll go up the hill, and then all the driveways will come down to the private road will be up at the top, and then each driveway will go down into the home.
The reason I asked is just the grading and the comp plan and some of the critical areas and the slopes, and that just avoids any question about that. So that's good.
That's correct. And I would add, we took a close look, Mr. Peck, at the geotechnical report, and there were some mitigation measures directly related to that in the SEPA determination.
Okay.
For grading.
With respect to floodplains, I don't see this floodplain as being an issue for this particular project, but it raised a question that it referred to how the land is described and outlined in our comp plan as a potential floodplain, but then a different standard, I think it's firm, the federal insurance standards and what they show. Is there an acknowledged standard, or maybe to stay within the scope of the record, I'll just ask, which standard are we using for this application, since there seems to be a subtle difference between the two? And
the county relies on the FEMA firm maps, the flood insurance rate maps, for determination of where floodplains exist.
okay, that's a perfect answer right there. Thank you.
Other questions?
I just have a correction on page 98 of the 100. There's a map, and in the middle lot, the first lot's 3.55. The middle lot says 49.44 acres. It's a 10.1 acre plot that's going to be subdivided. So we just need to correct it. I believe it's supposed to read 4.9.
So those attributes are auto-populated in the GIS system. I believe that it's labeling the parcel to the west side, which goes north and south.
Yeah.
And lies along the river.
Oh, that is the acreage that is on the west side of Columbia River Road?
There's a lot of information on this map. There's information labeling all sorts of different lots on both sides.
Oh, I see. So that's the land between the river and the roadway.
Yes. So
but there's no acreage on 8012.
No, it's because the GIS map is configured such that it only provides certain information depending on how much room is available and
I see.
And the scale of the map. The purpose of this map, which was created by staff, is just to highlight where those three lots exist.
Okay, well then that's clarity, and I've got it clarified. So thank you very much.
No problem.
I have no other questions.
Thank you.
So that area that he discussing with the 49 acres, does that actually belong to the Corps of Engineers?
I believe so. It's labeled USA, and so it would be either the Corps or Department or Bureau of Land Management, perhaps.
Thank you.
And Nicole, the M&I for water comes between the preliminary and the final. They're not required to have that going in. And I didn't see any reference to any sort of community well system, so the intent is that it's individual wells for each. Okay, thank you.
Yes, and speaking of the wells, there is a withdrawal limitation based on state statute, and so that will be listed on the face of the plat.
So if all 9 lots have residences, then it'll be 9 independent wells under the state's exempt well for domestic potable 5,000 gallons a day.
That's correct. And that's why we feel like irrigation water provisions are important, so that they don't have to rely on that well water for that purpose.
Right. Perfect. Thank you.
Okay, if there's no other questions, then we'll close the closed record hearing and ask for a motion.
Do we have a resolution number handy?
2021-089.
I move for approval of resolution 2021-089.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second on resolution 2021-089, Columbia Bluffs subdivision. Discussion. Hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Okay, next we'll move on to the closed record hearing on CUP 2020-05. So at this time, I will open the closed record hearing on CUP 2020-05, SEPA 2020-12. Derek,
Yes, sir.
you have the floor.
Okay. Sorry. Okay, thank you. Yes, this is a request for a conditional use permit from Jeffrey Burns regarding a request to, best way to explain it is to deviate from the county standard subdivision regulations. Effectively, Mr. Burns owns approximately 5 acres located at 600 West Vineyard Drive, Pasco. It's bounded to the south by West Vineyard Drive, and it's about 2,900 feet east of the intersection of Vineyard and Railroad, and about 2,850 west of the intersection of Vineyard and 395. And the property is zoned agricultural production. And there's a map there. There it is. And it's this half of this triangle. So the east half of this triangle is another property under ownership by somebody else with another single family home and some outbuildings. The reason why this is a request to deviate is effectively Mr. Burns is seeking to split this property roughly in half, and I've lost my mouse on the screen. All right, anyways. Why all of a sudden can't I get it off this thing? There. Oh. So, allow for a 2 parcel short plat. Normally, a short plat application would be handled administratively. However, there are certain requirements in this zone, especially in an AP 20 zone. The minimum lot size to be able to be created generally is a 20-acre lot, unless you are able to qualify for a innovative short plat process, which allows for a minimum 1-acre lot for purposes of subdividing perhaps the residential use off of a farm property, or maybe there's a commercial ag related building like a storage building, or for other finance reasons generally, or to also take off a chunk of the land and it helps with mortgages and financing when the parcel is broke off. But the long and short of the innovative short plat, which is 17.10.050F1, is to allow for these limited subdivisions of ag land, and for every lot created that is less than 20 acres in size, there must be a 20 acre per lot set aside that is either maintained as ag land or open space effectively in perpetuity. This creates a self-limiting factor out in the ag land so that folks can, there's, like for example, crop corners, which are in fact, in this case, exactly what we're dealing with is we have a crop corner that was back before we had the innovative short plat and the limited record of survey. So you can do a record of survey or a segregation of land, 20 acres or more out in the AP 20. Back in the early 2000s, not sure exactly what year we changed it, but state law allowed for 5 acre segs, meaning that you could just do a record of survey, create a 5 acre lot. The county in the 2000s, and again, I apologize, I don't remember what year, changed that to a 20 acre minimum in the
Excuse me,
AP
Derek,
20.
I think the
Yeah.
5 acre segs you're referring to are pre-GMA 1984, is that right?
No, you can still under state law do 5 acre
Still do
segs.
Segs, okay, thank you.
It's just that we have 20 acre or 40 acre if you're in the AP 40. That's where we set. And it's the intent is to protect farmland. And then what those turned into over time are what we call the lammerds. When you look on our zoning map, you'll see these clusters of like 5 acre lots scattered throughout the county. Those are records of survey, 5 acre segs that were done before we adopted the new regulations regarding the 5 acre minimums. All of that aside, this property is not a lammerd. It's not zoned, like RC5 or RR5. It's zoned AP20, and that's because of when it was created and things like that. The landowners had requested from neighbors to see if they would be willing to assist and provide a 20 acre set aside. He was unable to obtain that. Therefore, he's basically asked to go above my head, which is totally fine. I make administrative decisions. I can do things within the confines of the rules. This request moves beyond that, and that's why it's brought to the Planning Commission and the board for that request. I do not have that statutory authority to deny a request of this nature. I can say I can't do it administratively, but I can't say you cannot do that. That's not within the power of my department. All I can say is we can't do it administratively. You always have a right to bring it to the board. Mr. Burns has chosen that route, and what he's looking to do is create a short plat, 2 properties. One would be approximately 2.01 acres, and that's with the existing residents. And then the other one, which would be basically vacant, would be approximately 2.52 acres, but it would not have that 20 acre set aside for the creation of that lot. Oops. So as I mentioned, the property is approximately 5 acres. It's ag zoned, and it's also the comp plan is agricultural, AP20 zone. There's no critical areas, and staff issued a CEPA determination of non-significance. So this went to the Planning Commission. It was basically staff's recommendation was to recommended denial due to the fact that it does not meet the intent or the standards associated with the zoning or comp plan. None of the other suggested findings of fact are in conflict. It does meet those. However, generally a recommendation for approval is when a proposal meets all 6 suggested findings of fact. or in fact, even one can be cause to recommend denial. Staff is recommending denial or recommended denial. The Planning Commission supported that recommendation due to the fact that, generally speaking, the property can still be used because the AP 20 zoning. A second home could be built on that without going through a conditional use permit process due to the for family or permanent hired help. There would be limits on the square footage. Also, the property can, as it currently sits, accommodate a commercial store or commercial shop, like automotive shop or something like that through a CUP process. Regardless of whether the property is segregated off or maintained as a single parcel, these uses are still allowed. The one thing that will not be able to be done as it currently sits is that 2.52 acres cannot be sold to another party. That's the only limitation. But all the other proposed uses can be acquired or achieved on that property as it currently sits. The other concern staff has is the precedence this would set. Potentially, other 5-acre lots in a similar situation would therefore qualify for such a subdivision. And this starts getting into an area where it effectively almost invalidates our 20-acre minimums because we have so many 5-acre lots out there or properties that are close. The whole purpose of the innovative short plat is it's just that, it's innovative, it's a little novel. And though we recognize that farms and the activities that go on in ag uses and family relations and things like that to support the business and all that, that's why we allow for innovative short plats and the needs that sometimes arise with our modern financing and things like that. We don't believe that it's a prudent choice to set that as a precedence countywide, and approval in staff's opinion would do so. So based on that, Planning Commission also recommended a negative recommendation, and with 6 suggested findings of fact, again, primary being that it does not, doing so would conflict with the intent of the county comp plan and zoning. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Questions, commissioners?
So the sole purpose is they want to break that off so they can build a shop on the property, a shop or a home?
Or both.
Or both.
And generally the idea would be to sell it to, as presented by the applicant, to his son. The issue being is there's no way that I'm aware of that we would legally be able to bind that. In other words, we can't tell someone who they can or cannot sell something to. So today that may be the intent, but in the future it could change. Whereas his son could, as it currently sits, build his home. It would be limited to 1,600 square feet of living space. And he could also build a commercial shop, a repair shop on that property, with assuming he got the conditional use permit and it was approved. So there's no limiting factor except for the fact of the inability to sell the property to somebody else, if that makes sense.
The son probably couldn't finance the home if he didn't own the property.
That could be a possibility. I can't make land use decisions based on individuals' financial situations.
Well, typically, I don't think you can get a home loan if you do not own the property that sits on it. I could be wrong, but I'm sure that's probably the reasoning why they want to break that off.
I wouldn't disagree with that. That's, in fact, was a stated concern of the applicant. It's just, again, land use policy and individual financing of what you're going to do with the property. It's just, I can't go there because dynamics or situations can change. So, like, for example, the property becomes segged. For me, I have to look at it that way, as the property and all its potential uses, not not what the current applicant intends to do. It's when it comes to sales. I can't control the sales.
So if they were to break off 5 acres, then that would be allowed?
No, not at
Not
this
even for a
time.
family member?
No, because not without that 20 acre set aside. And generally speaking, it needs to be a property that's adjoining in some way. It doesn't need to be owned by the same party. It just needs to be that, what would happen is, in an innovative short plat, on the face of the plat, it says, say lot 1 is the small lot and lot 2 is the big remainder lot. It'll say on the plat, it says, 20 acres of lot 2 are in perpetuity set aside as open space or ag land. Something like that would appear on the plat, and that's how it limits the ability to subdivide beyond a certain point. And you can only do up to 4, create up to 4 lots using that process. So it helps prevent all the ag land being cut up into little 5 acre, 1 acre, or whatever parcels.
Derek, was precedent discussed by the planning commission?
I believe it was, but I cannot recall 100%.
Okay. Well, you've discussed it here today. It's part of the record. We've had similar requests in the past. I don't recall specifics of them, and I don't want to drag them into the record, but I don't recall us having overridden our own code and approving these in the past. Within the record, has there been any example of any time we've ever done that?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay. The underlying premise, as you've already said, is to protect ag and to protect farm ground. And if you split off 5, it locks up another 20 for ag in perpetuity, like you said, unless there's a significant change to the comp plan and annexations and redistricting and rezoning and all the other things that could happen. So
Yes.
This is not far from industrial zone along the west side of 395. It is an area that could see some changes in its zoning probably sooner than other parts of the county. In fact, if I were going to pick an area in the county, I think this would probably be it. But as much as I'm an advocate for individual property rights, we hold everybody to the same standard equitably. And to my recollection, we've done that with other folks. So I'm having trouble seeing a justification for contradicting the rules that we've asked others to live by, required others to live by.
So Derek, the 2 pivot irrigated fields that are just due north of it, east and west side of it, are they owned by the applicant?
No.
Okay.
Like I said, he did ask neighboring, or according to the applicant, the neighbors were asked and nobody would assist. I've even spoken to a neighbor or 2 and they mentioned that they weren't interested either in assisting with that type of set aside.
So Derek, if somebody had 20 acres somewhere else in the county, even 10, 15 miles away, that could be dedicated to justify this. You kind of got a little soft on the language there about proximity, and
It currently, it's not generally, the intent,
it sounds to me like it violates intent, but not the letter.
I believe that's a correct interpretation.
These set-asides were intended to facilitate family homesteads on farm ground or adjacent.
Basically, yeah.
Okay. All right.
Or to seg off, like I said, like say, you had a farm operation that was set for 300 acres. You're now down to 200. You've got some commercial storage buildings or potato storage buildings or whatever. You don't need them anymore. but your neighbor may. So you seg those off, sell it to him. That's another application for the innovative short plat process or things like that.
Did I see a letter of approval from or was that the previous
We did receive one letter
Thought you did,
in
yeah.
support.
from a Smith, right?
I believe that was the party, yes. I'm not, I have no idea. I'm assuming it's somebody within a mile radius.
Okay.
I don't know exactly who they were, but yeah, they did provide support.
Did we have any letters of non-support?
No, it doesn't, I don't, and I didn't understand that. However, I would run into a concern with state agencies if this, like I said, were to start becoming a common practice.
Yeah.
Unless, of course, again, we change significant aspects of our comp plan. All of this is doable. It's just not in place at this time.
So if he would have owned one of those pivots, he could have delegated the 20 acres and there would have been no problem.
Correct.
Yeah.
Or if they had just said, yep. Sometimes we have that where there's no familiar relationship, but the farmer desires to maintain their land into perpetuity, so they don't care. And they'll grant that right to another party that has no familiar relations, and we'll accept that as long as it's in proximity.
Any further discussion?
I have that.
Nope.
Okay, with that, I will close the closed record hearing on CUP 2020-05, SEPA 2020-12, and entertain a motion.
Eric, is that a recommended motion you have on the screen?
It is. There's actually a resolution for this one, if you so desire to utilize that.
Hearing no motion, I believe that the request is here.
Chairman, if I might, Eric, does this require an affirmative decision or does a no action equal a no?
It would require, for it to be approved, it would require an affirmative action.
Sure.
Yeah, if it dies on the vine or for lack of a second, it's the same as effectively a denial.
Guys, with the lack of a motion.
Yeah, yep. Or like I said, there is a resolution that's been prepared for denial as well. Could be considered redundant.
As much as I would like to be able to help the gentleman, I think we would be flooded with these overnight and it would run right against our objectives to protect farmland.
And each of them would be processed as conditional use permit. They would not be done administratively.
Well, hearing no motion, then we will consider it null and void. And we'll move on to public comment. Is there anybody on the phone, Keith?
I don't believe so.
Public comment period is now open. If anybody would like to come and speak to the mic, absolutely.
I am the property owner here.
Can you, she'll put the mic for you, sir. There you go.
I am the property owner in this case. And I realize you guys are in a dilemma, but there's a lot of expansion going on in the Tri-Cities right now. It's all going up the river, up 68. I know there's been a lot of AP 20 action going on. I've been involved in it, some of it myself. I think if you don't be careful, you're going to be behind the 8 ball, because I think there's a necessity for some of this to be changed. There's a lot of farms out here that have broken out ground, years and years ago. It might be only 20, it might be 20 acres, it might be only 5. But a lot of these people, you know, we're all getting up there in age also. So we have family members. We might have some financial interests where these properties need to be broken up and or, you know, divided out into the children that are left behind. And I think you guys need to consider, maybe you need to change some of the rulings. The AP 20 is a really strange character for me because you're setting aside 20 acres and it can be designated in a 150 acre circle. It can be designated anywhere in that circle. And you're saying, okay, we're going to designate this 20 acres right next to the pivot of an irrigated circle to preserve farmland. Yet everything around it is not set aside in perpetuity, you know? So it can all be developed into massive building lots, which is going to happen up Road 68. We all know that. You guys have a corridor going up there. I don't know where it's all bordered at, but you know, it's just like I heard today, there's a proposition for 9 lots being put up in that area. Those people are all, they're getting the advantage of all these developments when the people that are over on the 395 corridor, so to speak, or anywhere else in Franklin County, they're not getting that advantage, whether it's for financial gain or for family members or whatever it is. So I think I would appreciate you guys considering that in the future. I think it's a big deal in the Franklin County area. We're going to preserve the farmland. They're basically pivots, you know, or, you know, there's not a whole lot of solid set and all that stuff anymore, but you're taking a pivot and you're pulling 20 acres out of it. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense. I don't know where it all came from, the AP 20 designation, but anyway, that's what I have to say about it. I appreciate your time today and considering it. I saw you guys were really thinking about it. I think there's a need for it down the road. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sure, I just offer, we're heading into a cycle that's required by law where we update our comprehensive plan. And I certainly hope you'll participate and give us your feedback and input about what areas need to be zoned and how. And Derek could be your point of contact for that, because this only happens about every decade. And this is exactly the time to address precisely what you're talking about. Thank you.
So with that, public comment. Oh, we do have a caller.
One caller now. Good morning, Ms. Hatch.
Yes, it is.
Good morning. You have the floor for 4 minutes, please.
Okay, sure. I just wanted to speak to what you were just discussing. I do understand why some of the limits are there. A lot of it has to do with farm practices. And if you have homes in pivots, the reason for the 20 acres is really to protect the farmer from, if he's doing any kind of spraying or chemicals on his property, that then he doesn't have to worry that there are residential homes near enough that that spray could affect them. So that's one of the reasons why that rule is there. But also, I just wanted to remind our commissioners, I have not heard anything. I was 5 minutes late into the meeting, so maybe I'm wrong. I don't know if we've done anything in voting for a redistricting commission. I am going to keep pressing that. I think that's vital. And if we don't get that done, then we do go into a lawsuit. It really will be on the commissioners, because you have not formed a redistricting commission going forward. And I really think that that's important, and it's important that you use the model I know that Commissioner Didier put up, but also I would add at least one citizen from each commissioner district that is of the protected Hispanic class, since that is where the threat of the lawsuit is coming from. So I just wanted to put my 2 bits in about that, and I hope you gentlemen have a wonderful day. Thank you.
Thank you. Public comment, anybody else? Hearing none. Keith? There we go.
I've got several comments I'd like to make. We're doing all these new subdivisions out there north of Pasco, 9 today. And what was it last week or 2 weeks ago, another bunch. You need to beef up the planning staff. My neighbors were 90 days getting a building permit. Price of the house went up 15% while he was waiting. 90 days is a little ridiculous, and it's still not approved. So I think you need to look at staffing problems in the planning department for the building, especially that, and we're going to have a lot more of it coming on. The other thing, I'd like a little follow-up. Talked about the transit authority, how much money they had. You were talking about putting a referendum for the people on doing something on redistribution of the tax. Have you talked to the Benton County Commissioners? I'm sure they're on the board too. Instead of going from 6% down to 5% with 1% going to the county, look at maybe going down to 4% with 2% going to joint county projects like mental health or bridges across the river or other things that are out there that the two counties are jointly involved in. And you might have a better chance of getting that money reappropriated so it all doesn't go to the transit authority. And the other thing I'd like to bring up, brought this up probably over a year ago. There's still no setup in the county for like sending out email blast for when the county commissioners are meeting, what the agenda is, when the planning commission's meeting, what the agenda is. So people, just if you do an email blast, then anybody that's interested could sign up for it and find out what kind of meetings are going on. Commissioner Peck brought up the comp plan change. There's a bunch of changes that we need to look at for our comp plan coming up to revise, and especially with the city taking in 3,000 acres, that's going to put more pressure on the lower basin, and along with the port developing that 320 acres. So I'd really like to see something along those lines be available to your constituents so they can be more involved. Thank you.
Thank you. And Keith, do you want to, we've made progress on the planning and building. You want to, 2 positions we've okayed to hire.
Yes, so we're in the process of advertising 1 position and writing the new job specs for the second one, but we're recruiting for those positions.
And you've sent a letter here to Benton County, and I would just ask you to include us as commissioners when you send this out to the Benton County Commissioners about meeting and putting together this referendum.
Yeah, I had intended on covering that, but we are tentatively scheduled for the first Wednesday in June. I think that's this June 2nd to meet with the Benton County Commissioners on that transit and mental health tax issue.
And what about the last about information, getting the information out to the public about the meetings?
You know, that's certainly an idea that is worth considering. I mean, it does take some staff time and resources, IT resources. Those become public records, and we need to understand that there's a cost associated with that, but it's certainly possible to do an email to constituents.
Okay. All righty.
All it takes is one person. We do it through the Association of Realtors. The city of Pasco does it. They put it up on the deal and blast it out. It takes 2 minutes to send an email blast
Sure.
to everybody.
Okay, with that, is there any other public comment? Anybody on the phone, Keith?
No, sir.
Okay, with that, we'll move on to office business, approval of vouchers. I believe we have two.
Move for approval of fund expenditures in the total amount of $434,649.98 as presented, and note that it has been reviewed and signed by two representatives of the auditor's office and the county administrator.
Second.
A motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Move for approval of salary clearing payroll and emergency management payroll in the total amount of $864,446.57 as presented, and note that it has been reviewed and signed by two representatives of the auditor's office.
Second.
Been a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. With that, we'll move on down to the consent agenda. I believe there are 3 items on the consent agenda.
Move for approval of the consent agenda, items 1 through 3.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second for the approval of the consent agenda, items 1 through 3. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. With that, Keith, we'll move down to administration office business.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I'll start with just kind of referring back to what we mentioned a minute ago about the meeting with Benton County. We've invited commissioners in Benton County to participate. I've heard back from their administrator that the first Wednesday in June is available. And so I wanted to just check with your schedules to see if that would be workable, and I'll go ahead and set that up if it is. And then a question of where you would like to meet. Do you care to meet here or in Benton County?
It'll have to be an advertised meeting, correct? Because,
We will need to post a notice of it, yes.
and will the public be
Sure.
invited to
It'll be a
attend, of
public
course?
meeting.
I'm open for suggestions from the other commissioners of where to meet.
Benton County's got a larger meeting room. If they do it in the Tri-Cities building, that'll allow more public to attend in person.
I would agree with that. The bigger the venue, the better.
I'm good with that.
If you're okay with that, then I'll
Yep.
go ahead and move forward with setting that up.
So
I'm sorry,
The first Wednesday would be
June the 2nd. I
the
believe.
2nd.
Like,
Yes,
does that
June
sound right?
2nd.
Yes, Wednesday, June the 2nd.
Okay, just clarifying. Okay,
And I will notify you if that date is not workable for them, but
okay.
the message I received this morning was that date would be open for them. Along with scheduling, we have posted a notification in the Franklin County Graphic for a public hearing on our ordinance revision to make possession of narcotics a misdemeanor in Franklin County. To my knowledge, the governor has not yet signed the state bill, but I'm also hearing that he intends to sign that. But we're moving forward with the proposal if something should happen to pick up the deal at the state level. But we are proposing a date, or we have scheduled a date of May 18th for that hearing at our board meeting. Last week, Commissioner Mullen and I participated with the Tri-City Regional Chamber of Commerce, providing an update on the state of Franklin County and current issues that we're working on. We did that jointly with Benton County. I think it went well, received some favorable feedback on the subject, that the folks in the Tri-City Chamber were appreciative of the fact that we updated them on some major issues that are going on in Franklin County and what we're currently working on. So I haven't confirmed, but I expect that that will probably be a at least an annual or some kind of a regular cadence to doing something similar. Still working with the port on their efforts to get commitments for financing of completion of some projects out of the Ryman Industrial Complex. There's a lot of things at play or at work right now with federal funding, with the grants and the existing financial structure that the port uses to finance this kind of a project. I'm spending a fair amount of time on those kinds of issues. We had a meeting the other day with the port to kind of get a review of where they are on their funding. And there was a very small portion that they're still looking for, that the regional partners of the port, the city, for example, ourselves, the PUD, looking at ways to complete that financing commitment that's necessary to build out the industrial complex so that they can attract and retain some pretty significant investment in Franklin County's industrial work. Also, I'm working on the shoreline reconveyance issue that has heated up again a little bit, and scheduled a meeting with staff on that and the Umatilla Indian Tribe on June the 9th. I'll be participating with them at that meeting. We are communicating with also the city of Pasco and other entities, the chambers of commerce, Hispanic chambers and so forth, about what our intents are around the American Recovery Act funding that we'll be receiving. We want to make sure that we're not duplicating effort as much as possible, but we're directing those resources to where they need to be. We will have a discussion to probably next week's meeting about what specific items we think should be considered by this board, and certainly you'll be making those final determinations of how that money is used. Also, just as a kind of a footnote, nothing you need to do, but I've ordered an appraisal of the Wilson House. It's a facility that we've owned for a number of years. When Lord's was a nonprofit organization, we essentially allowed them to use that facility for their administrative staff that provides a lot of mental health services in our community. When they became a for-profit entity, we changed that relationship to where they were leasing that building from us. They potentially have an interest in purchasing it, so we've ordered that appraisal to kind of see what a market value looks like. And then, of course, this board can decide if they want to sell it to them or sell it to on just open market. But long-term, this board has discussed this in the past about it not being a necessary asset for county business to be conducted there. The current relationship is they're paying a monthly rent to us for use of that facility. But long-term, we started on this project probably over a year ago, but because of COVID and our inability to really facilitate an open market discussion of the value of that property, it's been delayed, but that's kind of where we are with that project right now. That's kind of a major rundown of the big issues I'm working on, but certainly glad to. I don't have anything that requires action this morning other than those meeting schedules.
Couple questions for you, Keith.
Absolutely.
Any update on the commissioner's redistricting committee that we're trying to formulate?
I'll probably direct that to Sean Sant for an answer. I think he's on the line. Sean, do you want to update on anything from Mr. Safarli?
Well, I don't really have an update for you at this time. I mean, we've already been served with paperwork on the lawsuit, and so that's really going to shortcut, I think, the estimate that it would take to put together a committee as what has previously been discussed. We're going to continue to work with Mr. Safarli and the other group that has filed the suit to form whatever meaningful committee might be agreeable, consistent with resolving that lawsuit, but also considering the timelines that would otherwise be required for a timely resolution. for that. I do not have a executive session scheduled for today. We are moving forward with filing an answer to that litigation, and we should be able to have some additional information maybe in the next week or so.
Okay. Salary Commission, are we on,
We're on track to be pulling that together, yeah.
when will we be presented with that Salary Commission?
I don't have a firm date, but I'll get one for you.
Okay. And then I got another phone call from a builder that's trying to put the building up at Oakdale. And they have, of course, a timeline here because they have birds that have been hatched and they need a building. And they're waiting for their permitting process. Again, we're running into lots of people with timetables and they're not getting the permits they need to move forward. And that's tax revenue for the county. And I'm just, if you would please look into that.
Certainly. Yeah, we are well aware that we've been swamped with permit applications. We're moving through those as quickly as we can. We're hiring staff to address some of the staffing needs. So
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And with that, I skipped over the updates. You just gave yours, and I please ask Commissioner Peck and Mullen, please give their updates of the last week at this point in time.
So I sat in with WASAC on the redistricting discussions that they're having, and their recommendation is if we get anything out of this at all, we should be setting up our committees now to get our redistricting plan ready, as the census data will be out in September.
And I sat in on that as well. The number one priority, population. That's what he said. So it's all based on. Anything else, Commissioner Mullen?
I spoke with Dr. Garcia, and he has some concerns over the matrix that's been using to collect the data for the COVID numbers. We have one person in Lords at the moment, and it is his thoughts that we are in fine shape and we should be working on opening back up and getting out of this pandemic.
And we're going to get a statement here this afternoon, I heard.
sometime today, the governor's expected to make an announcement. I understand there has been some discussion of that issue of hospitalizations and accuracy of numbers that have been reported to the state, but I can't predict what the governor's going to do. I mean, as soon as I know something, you will.
That it, Commissioner Mullen?
Yes, that's it.
Commissioner Peck?
So 2 quick notes on Commissioner Mullen's comments. I've met Dr. Garcia a couple of times. Seems like a fine gentleman. He is an MD, great credentials. His views appear to be different than a number of the other medical professionals, and that only makes our jobs more difficult when the experts we rely on for advice are telling wildly different stories. I'm not saying who's right, who's wrong, just pointing out there's a lot of voices. Second thing is that on the redistricting, most of WASAC's focus is on redistricting of state districts, like we're in both the 9th and the 16th legislative districts. Some of the principles might apply to local redistricting, but when you're in the presence of a lawsuit, what WASAC is discussing about state districts doesn't apply, not directly anyway. It's interesting, and I'm glad you sat in on that as well, but just want to make that point. So I was in Olympia on Thursday and Friday serving on the County Road Administration Board, which is the state agency. I think there's 9 members total statewide. We apportion the state gas taxes to the 39 counties, which is a wonderful opportunity to see inside the details of what the state's doing with those gas tax dollars. We also deal with just a broad range of transportation related issues, but we had an issue with Soton County where they've been trying for many years to get a road in along one of the major recreational waterways there in Hell's Canyon. And after several years of trying to negotiate their federal NEPA process, National Environmental Policy Act, they were unable to get concurrence from the local tribes and the federal government in a, I think, fairly unusual move. The federal agency stepped in and said, go ahead and issue it and we'll all sign it. And if the tribes don't want to sign it, that's okay. You can move forward anyway. That's a potential game changer. I've not seen it happen before. Yeah, I'm sure it has. I just haven't seen it. But it speaks to our ability to do major transportation projects across the state, but especially in eastern Washington. The real issue there was $1 million+ of state money that was used to get them as far as they are. And because their project was imploding for lack of support from the tribes and others, there was a question whether or not they were going to have to repay the funds. And we found a way to legally extend their timeline so that they can still do their project. That was all crab business over Thursday and Friday. Squeezed in the LSC meeting with Wasack on Friday. Like everybody else, probably received a phone call from the same gentleman that you spoke to regarding the chickens, and actually a couple of others. Participated in the shoreline reconveyance discussion that Keith spoke to. I caught the tail end of it, and then I had a separate meeting with David Replog from TriDec on the issue. The Municipal Advisory Committee, the local group of mostly mayors and electeds on COVID on Thursday. Of course, the Tri-City Chamber update on Friday, which Mr. Johnson, I think he did an exceptional job in presenting and representing the county. And like everybody else, I'm sure, a bunch of other meetings and activities, but that's probably enough for today.
Thank you. Yeah, I had Hanford Communities and then workforce development meetings, which both ran very smoothly. But the thing I really want to emphasize here is Wednesday, we had our meeting with Franklin County residents and about the assessor's presentation on tax personal property. It was well attended, 30 to 40 people, somewhere in that venue, and a lot of good questions. Instead of 1 hour, it went on for 2 hours. And I talked to the assessor this morning, and he said that the office has been very busy answering questions and talking to people about this. And we're just trying to inform everybody of their responsibilities here as Franklin County residents and the personal property tax and how it can sneak up on all of us. So it was well received and in a good venue. And Commissioner Mullen was there. He witnessed it. It was a good meeting. And would you like to say anything about it?
Oh, just very informative. And I think there's a lot of personal property items out there that people are maybe unaware of that should be addressed.
That's why we're bringing it up and trying to get people educated. So it's planning on doing another one down the road. But other than that, that's about all that I have. And then Sean, I would just like to ask with Governor Jay Inslee's announcement update on spectator event and religious organization guidance, we might want to start looking as far as legally if he's maybe stepping out of bounds here, because it looks as if we're moving towards mandatory vaccinations. And when we go to that point, then we have taken away the liberty of oneself, your freedom, or we might say your free will as to whether or not you want to take this vaccination. We're not there yet, but if we do get to that point, I would hope that you would have something put together legally for the residents of Franklin County on their protection as an individual and the individual liberty, which I believe the board we hold it as our highest political value, is the individual liberty in this country of America as the republic we are.
Yeah, we will continue to provide the legal guidance to Franklin County. That's the duty of my office, is to provide the board with the legal guidance necessary for you to do your jobs. So we'll continue to provide that.
Thank you. And with that,
Chairman, before we move on, I
Commissioner
want to
Peck.
follow up on a couple of questions that or comments that were made. I wasn't able to make the meeting with the assessor's office, but I want to acknowledge that in 13 years of being a commissioner, I think it's the first time I've seen that done. And it sounds like a great practice. Sounds like it was well received. Were you able to take questions from the audience or help them with comments?
Yes, we did. We took questions from the audience and it got clear down to tools. What do you need to declare tools? We were getting into areas that people didn't even think about. Computer, how long it stays on. It was very informative, very well received. Questions about permanent crops. If they have a freeze and they lose the whole crop, do they still have to pay taxes on it? And it was brought out that they're not taxing the land, they're taxing the crop on the land. And it was very, very well done. And I got to give credit to where credit is due, and that is to our assessor and to Piper and to Nikki. They did a great job. And they all took a part of it and they explained it, and then they took questions, and then we had questions at the end, and it was very informative. I learned a lot.
Well, don't leave yourselves out. You were helping out, I'm sure.
Pretty much just attending.
Pretty much attending. They are the experts in that area.
Good.
So, and they did an excellent job of presentation and taking in questions and answers. While we're here, and I see Matt Mahoney is here, how soon is that position for the planning going to be ready to be announced that we can start interviewing? I know we have two positions. One of them is ready to go, and how long until the next one? And then I guess my question for Matt Mahoney, is this going to be sufficient as fast as the county is growing?
Well, the position that the board saw today is for another planner.
Mhm.
What we have found in the past is planners are hard to find. And so I can't give you a timeline on when that will be filled. And then we're currently working with HR to establish, there's a county process policy that we have to follow. We're trying to establish the job description or job classification description for the permit tech. And that has to go through HR. They'll do their work on that, doing compensation review and all that, and then we'll get that out. In the meantime, we're taking steps to try to speed up the process. One, of course, is we brought in one of our consultants who will have an on-site presence in the planning and building department to help review the building permits, this huge backlog and influx. I mean, we're still getting these every day. So, and then I'll be sitting down with Derek after this meeting and discussing if there's anything we can do internally from our office to provide assistance. The issue with that is one fund can't benefit another. And if we're going to be talking about utilizing county road staff, then there's going to be a cost associated with that. We can't just do it and use county road funds to work for another department. Those funds can't be spent that way. So there would have to be a reimbursement process. So there's some things that we're going to be discussing. Then we'll be sitting down with Keith and discussing options moving forward. We got to get this process. We understand that. We need to get this process moving and, getting to full staff so that we can stay up with it. So I wish I could stand here and say I see a light at the end of the tunnel, but I don't right now. But when I do, I will be standing in here and telling the board with a huge smile on my face, there is a light at the end of the tunnel. But right now, we're just doing everything we can internally to try to get caught up. And in the meantime, get the necessary staff hired to keep us that way from this, from present into the future. So I wish I could give you a deadline, but planning positions are incredibly lean right now to find planners. So, I believe it went out yesterday. Last week, maybe.
Yeah, it was posted. It was posted yesterday. It was posted very broadly. We've posted it with, we're advertising with the Association of Washington Cities, several planning association whose acronyms I don't remember all of right now, but basically we've cast it as broadly as possible because in addition to planners being always challenging to recruit for, the job market, the labor market right now is incredibly challenging in general. Unemployment is relatively low right now in this area and statewide, really. And people who have jobs are not generally, right at this point, secure enough to be looking for others. So everybody's kind of staying put. There's not a lot of movement in the labor market, which makes it more challenging, particularly for professional level positions. So we're doing the best we can. We're monitoring it very closely. Like I said, putting out, we're spending money on recruitment to try to get that out there. And then in terms of the other position, as soon as the department gets us those job duties, my staff has been informed that this is top priority. We understand the needs of the county to get this done. And so we're supporting as best as we can to move these things through the process as quickly as possible.
Carly, it's been brought out multiple times, the fact that delays in construction have real costs for people, for constituents. And I bring that up because I'm curious as to the legalities and the ethics of whether or not we can use inducements, relocation benefits, signing bonuses. Are there any of the tools that are commonly used in the private sector that we may be able to use? I'm not anxious to throw the people's tax money at the problem, but it's costing the people of our county a huge amount in delays, and I think it's a good investment. So is it legal? Can we do that? Where are the boundaries?
We can do that. We can get very creative.
Well, then please do.
Absolutely. No, those are conversations we can have. As you might recall, we did that when we filled the planning and building director position. So we do have things we can do. This is something I have good experience with, can be creative. We need to identify the candidates first, and then we can have those conversations. So definitely that's not out of the question.
Yeah. And you said we need to identify the candidates first. I'm kind of hoping that maybe even in our advertising, we can speak to those inducements.
For sure.
Okay, thanks.
Mm-hmm.
My question would be is once we get a planner hired, is that going to be sufficient to keep up with the demand?
I think once we get the new planning position filled, and then we get the permit tech position established and get that filled, I think we'll be looking really good in the planning and building department. I believe in having the right amount of people for normal. And then if we need to, we always rely on consultants to infill for us. We do that on the county roadside. And so I think once we get there, we'll be good. And as needed, we'll still utilize any of the consultants that we have to take care of those times where it's busier than normal. So the other thing I want to add is we're working too right now is a biggie is, as we've gone through this transition, of course, there's a lot about that department that I didn't know. I was busy running, another department that included county roads, motor vehicles, solid waste. And as I've gotten more knowledge, as Derek has been able to get more knowledge, we also want to take total advantage of the technology they have. They are utilizing a web-based system. And one of the things we have, having one of his staff members working on, is using the public portal to that permit system. So everything can be done by the applicant, can be put in there. Because what we're seeing now is really, for lack of a better term, it's just inefficiencies where they're having to submit hard copies of their information. And then those are having to then be inputted into the system. And so by doing all of those types of things, I believe, if we can streamline the process utilizing the public portal of the software that the county currently has, so that the individuals who are submitting the permits can do that all through the portal. Everything will be there. Like I said, one of the issues that we run into on the building side of things is incomplete applications. So somebody reviews that and then they get through it and they're missing some pretty important components. Then they have to let the contractor know, or the home builder or the homeowner know that we need more information. And then you're waiting on that information. Well, then as that happens, more and more applications are coming in, and then you'll get somebody and the time clock restarts. And so I'm not blaming anybody. I'm just saying if we can utilize these portals, use some of the efficiencies that we could be utilizing, I think we can really help to shut down that part of the process that's really affecting a lot of time. The other thing that we're hearing too, which is interesting, is people are calling their contractors, and the contractors in some ways are throwing us under the bus. When in actuality, we got one of our building official who has a stack about that tall on his desk of incomplete applications that he's waiting for information on. But instead of the contractor telling them that we didn't submit a complete application and they're waiting for more information, they're throwing us under the bus. So
Matt, if I could, I just want to ask you to ensure that you're communicating to applicants and contractors and everybody involved in the process that you don't get yourself vested under the code and the terms and conditions for your project just by turning in an application. It has to be a complete application. I know some will turn in a partially complete one thinking that that'll hold the date and they'll slide under the wire for new conditions, new requirements. And I'm surprised even some moderately experienced folks have said, well, I'll submit it and I'll get that later. At least it'll get me in the queue and it'll get me vested. It doesn't get you vested.
Correct.
It's got to be complete. And some of them don't know that, and some of them know it and think that they can slide through. So I really think we need to emphasize that point.
Yeah.
Because you don't need a big stack of incomplete applications. That wastes everybody's time.
That's correct. That takes a lot of staff time away from applications that are complete.
And in fact, I'd go one further and tell them you don't go into the queue until your application's complete.
Correct. And I do want to emphasize, Derek did say that last week, that we're not accepting them. There is kind of a caveat to that. And Mr. Baumann brought it up last week, where he would be waiting on a letter from the city saying that he is going to be receiving city water or irrigation. We're not holding up applications for those types. Those are still complete applications, have everything we need, and we understand through the other processes that they'll have water and they're just waiting on the city or the irrigation district to get their work done and get the letters out to the homeowner. So I do want to emphasize, Mr. Baumann brought it up. It was a great point. Those types of situations are not what are considered incomplete applications. Incomplete applications that I've been seeing is where they're not even submitting engineered plans.
Right.
That's tough.
A sketch on a napkin is not an application.
Correct. And so that's been really a tool. And like I said, it does take a lot of staff time because they go through them and then it's like, oh, it's missing this, missing this, missing this. And in the meantime, they could have been reviewing one that was complete and get those people taken care of. So yes, it is important to emphasize. I appreciate that, Commissioner Peck, that, complete applications. And I think utilizing the portal and making that fully functional and effective will help with that, because they won't be able to submit until every I is dotted and T is crossed. So.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mahoney.
Great. Thank you.
With that,
Do have one caller now.
okay. Yeah. Well, I was going to move down to public comment. So here we go.
Good morning.
Good morning. This is LaWanda again. I apologize for being annoying, but I am calling again just after listening to the discussion. I just want Commissioner Mullen, I appreciate everything that he stated and shared about WASAC, and great to know when the census information is coming out. I have to say, Commissioner Peck only wants to redistrict in years that it's illegal to redistrict in. You cannot redistrict in an even year after January 16th. That's the law. And I don't know why he tried in 2018 and then again in 2020, when 2019 and now 2021 are the years that we should be having a redistricting commission and we should be redistricting. And I find this more than frustrating that that our prosecuting attorney says, well, we're just going to keep going forward. Going forward with what? Waiting to be sued? I do not understand this thinking. I highly recommend that our commissioners either find a second opinion, and I admire and appreciate our prosecuting attorney very much. But I think this is very unsound legal advice. I'm just confused by it. And so I either that or just move forward. At any time, Commissioner Mullen or Commissioner Didier can make a motion to seat a redistricting commission and second that. And you don't work for the bureaucracy, you work for the people. And the people need and want a fair process in redistricting. We don't want a court to decide. This is the year to redistrict. This is what we need to do. And you have till September to seat one. But really it needs to be done now because they need time to get up to speed on the law, even the pending lawsuits. All of that is information that they need to be able to do a fair and legal process, and one that represents the people and not someone with a threat of a lawsuit or one commissioner. This is, the fact that we haven't redistricted is Commissioner Peck's fault because he is the only one that was here that could have, that knew that we needed to redistrict. And we could have moved forward, but he only brought it up in 2018 and he only brought it up in 2020 when it's illegal to do. And then the other thing that I just wanted to say, I appreciate Dr. Garcia's words, and I hope that our commissioners hold the line. We can use some civil disobedience and you can ignore certain laws. You don't have to pronounce it, but you don't have to prosecute them either. So I just want to put that out there and hope you guys move forward. Thanks. Bye.
So, Mr. Chairman, since I was called out specifically, I'm going to respond to this. All due respect to Ms. Hatch, she's grossly misinformed. That's the kindest way I can think to represent her remarks. I have been trying to get this board to redistrict for years. Fortunately, all of our meetings are recorded. So what anyone has done or said is a matter of public record. And so I'll let the record stand for itself. We need to remember that there are salary commissions identified in Washington state law. There are not redistricting commissions identified in Washington state law. Doesn't mean we couldn't create one if we want to. And if that's what the board wants to do, I certainly won't oppose it. But I'm going to tell you, as a guy who has been pounding the table on this for at least 4 years, 5 years, I can tell you, as I've said previously, that train left the station long ago. We've got a letter from plaintiffs. We're under threat of lawsuit. Personally, I think we'll be in a lawsuit here very shortly. And plaintiffs has said in a public letter that is on the county website that they would embrace the idea of having public meetings in all of our cities throughout the county and taking public input and comment on the process and on the districts and on proposed boundaries. Seems to me that for us to go and create a redistricting commission now would duplicate that very process. I don't think we're going to have a choice in that process, but as often has, time will tell. And if y'all want to waste time and energy creating something that doesn't exist in state law to duplicate what the plaintiffs are going to require us to do anyway, then knock yourselves out. I won't oppose it. I'm just saying it's it's way past time for that. Thanks.
Keith, do we have any other phone calls?
It looks like Dr. Garcia had called in, but he waited for a while and has hung up. So as of now, I have no callers.
Anybody in the audience would like to speak?
I've got a myriad of thoughts running through my head about this issue that we've talked about numerous times as far as the permitting and complete packages. As far as I understand, the job of the planning and building department is to serve the public. And to say that you will not accept something until it is complete, I don't think is serving the public. I'm saying this carefully after having a very spirited conversation with your staff on Friday and having been held up for 2.5 weeks on something that didn't make any difference, like I spoke of last week. And I'm getting pretty frustrated with this process. If it's too much to ask for one of our public departments to serve the public, then something has gone grossly wrong. Two of my fellow companies, two of my sister companies, I call them, are the largest home builders in the Tri-Cities. And I had a meeting, we have a meeting very regularly. And in the most recent meeting we had, we go through our high points and our challenges. And the challenges that the first challenge that they spoke of and the only challenge they spoke of was getting building permits in Franklin County. And the staff that does that permitted and built over 300 homes last year. They know how to do it. They know how to do it well. They're very adept at figuring out how to do it well. And when they've come upon that struggle and they haven't figured out a way to streamline the process, we have something that's broken that needs to be fixed. And I appreciate you authorizing the hiring of more assistants there. That's very helpful. And I've been patient and I've been working diligently trying to figure out how to be a part of the solution. And frankly, I'm not finding out how I can be a part of that solution. I've said very carefully and many times that I would like to be a part of the solution. I would like to help figure out what that looks like, and I have not been able to do that. I'm a very persistent man, and I'm very diligent. I know all of you personally, and I think you would attest to that. And I think it's time we get this fixed. It's time to quit making excuses. It's time to get it done. I recognize that we do have challenges in front of us. We spoke of the farm out here that has birds coming. I'm very familiar with that, what's going on there. And I tell you, as a businessman, it's scary when you know how to do your job, you know how to do all the pieces that's involved with it, and there's a public department standing in your way. And those birds will have a home. They have to have a home. And it's time for the excuses to go away, and it's time to get the job done. I would like to be a part of that solution. As of today, I can't tell you how that I can be a part of it. I haven't seen that avenue. I don't know. It's time for the excuses to stop, and it's time to get it done. We have a housing problem. We have affordable housing problems, and like the one spoke of a 3 months delay, and the housing has gone up 15%. That's real, and it's real money. It comes out of people's savings account because they've already signed the contract. It's already underway. So the only thing they can do is take out of the savings that they've worked hard for. It's time for the excuses to go away. It's time to make action happen, and it's time for it to happen now.
Thank you. Any other public comment?
I, for one, appreciate the civility and candor of these tough issues and a more cohesive effort at working together on the part of all three commissioners. And hearing the public information and angst in response to it, I would support accelerating that. A long time ago, when I was brand new to this area 12 years ago, I remember railing Senator Mark Schessler's office and the predecessor to Mary Dye. I don't think I knew Joe Schmick about the redistricting of our state. I'm not sure that is the best pattern to look at, because it really made it harder for those out of power to gain power. And I didn't like it. So I'm just going to give you that feedback. I'm not trying to say, you're terribly wrong or misjudging. You do have to look, to higher levels, but that redistricting made it very difficult for different parties to run in different areas. Perry Dozier's position is a very apropos example of that. I do want to see the expediting and the streamlining that has been talked about, and support builders in our area. And I really appreciate that you had the property meeting. I was not able to attend, but information is empowering the citizens. And when you empower the citizens, they can come and support you. And together we make better decisions. So after a series of meetings that have been kind of rough, this is a better tenure and a better ability to work with Franklin and Benton County together. So it's appreciation and gratitude today. Thank you.
Anybody else, public comment? I see our assessor is in the chamber. Would you like to comment on that meeting we had out there for the public? And might I say, job well done.
Well, we had an excellent staff that helped put that together, and want to thank commissioners for attending that you could. I know you couldn't really get involved. I know, Rocky, you had to just sit there and keep it zipped, but just your presence there was appreciated on it. We had a tremendous amount of feedback that evening, but we also had a lot of feedback over the next several days, and we actually had several of the ag community individuals actually came in. Had several of them come in and sit and meet with me in my office afterwards, clarifying, making sure they understood a little further what we were talking about. We're actually in the process. We've done a couple of meetings in the past prior to me coming here. They were slightly different. They were not as detailed as this was in some ways. So we're expanding on that. But we're also working to develop some web-based information where people will be able to go on our website, actually click onto it and listen to maybe a 20-minute presentation that covers just a piece of that we worked and spoke about. So just a piece of maybe personal property, a piece of open space, so that they can, on their own time, be able to gather some of that information as well. So we're actually already working on those presentations, developing them on the PowerPoints, and then we'll be working at getting them into a web-based system. So I think there's some real good things for that. One comment, if I could, because Carly was talking about the challenges for the position for planner. We're finding the same thing, the same challenges for our position for an appraiser. So it's out there, it's difficult. What we don't want to do is lower our standards, but we're running into the exact same problem with getting applicants, qualified applicants, without having to go back to, a beginning phase and spending 4 years trying to train somebody and bring them up to the level that we already need them at right now or needed them at a year ago. So just to throw that up towards you.
Thank you.
Just a quick question, if I might. I think what you did with the meeting with Ag is most excellent. It probably has, like you say, been done before, but not at this level. So congrats for that. When is the one, or are there plans for one here in town where the issues are different, but still of great importance to our taxpayers? When is that meeting?
I'm actually developing for business right at this time, commercial side of it and industrial side of it. Right now, I'm probably 2/3 of the way through developing that program. Then we'll work at the residential. It's a whole different set of items.
Set of issues.
They're all a little different. So
I'd heard
what I want to do,
you might be working something. I just thought maybe you had a date
already
set.
working on about 2/3 of the way through on the actual commercial and business, which will affect, all types of businesses, retail, doctors,
So you
whatever it
thinking
might be.
Late spring or summer? Or?
Well, I hate to give you a time frame, but I'm hoping to have something on the website in less than 30 days.
Good.
So
Excellent.
that's what I'm looking at. Now we're modifying the website. IS is challenged. They've got a lot of areas. So once they can get me, they can open up my website for me to get in and do some changes in myself and my staff. We've already well on the way, about 30 some pages of changes we'll be making. So we're working on it.
Good. Thanks for doing that.
And what's great about it is you're putting it out there on the web so that they don't have to attend the meeting if they feel unsafe, and they can still get all the information.
Correct. And we'll go over some of the questions that we've been asked or gotten phone calls on. We'll try to cover some of those. We'll never get 100% of it, and we'll still do some in-person meetings because it draws. I just believe in that synergy, getting the public involved face to face and answering their questions that way, and not being afraid to face the questions that they may have. So we'll definitely continue to work on that as well.
Thank you.
Okay.
Do you have a caller? Dr. Garcia is back on the line.
Oh, good.
Good morning, Dr. Garcia.
Good morning. How are you?
Thank you for your patience this morning. You have the floor for 4 minutes, please. Still there?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can now. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, good morning. Thank you for having me. I feel that this is important, and this is my opinion according to the numbers that I have seen and the organizations that I belong to. So I believe that we could be cautiously optimistic about where we are with the COVID pandemic. One of the things that I would like to see if we get a better transparency and more consistency is in the way that we capture data in the state of Washington in different counties. Some counties are using Well Health, while others are using Meaningful Use or programs like Rhino to obtain information from our electronic medical records. And when we have inconsistency, what could happen is that the people that are taking care of that data inputs data not on a daily basis, but maybe on a weekly basis or on a bi-weekly basis, and the data may be skewed. So consistency should be our first priority. You know, we have an infectious disease that is very communicative, that is very infectious, and that I have said in the past, there's like pink eye, conjunctivitis, right? We tell people wash your hands, but this disease is transmitted from human to human. Air droplets, which is not airborne. And this morning, CNN came up and said, we're at 20% infection rate that we have been ever in America with this pandemic. So this is very good news. The other good news is that 83% of people 65 or over have been vaccinated. We have initiatives here in the state of Washington to vaccinate as many people as want to be vaccinated. And I'm involved with one of those initiatives, the Partnership for Food Security, trying to secure the people that touch food in our state. And it's been very successful. So what I see is more people are getting vaccinated. There's a large number of people that have had COVID and have natural immunity. And we are seeing in our hospitals statewide a decrease in hospitalizations. We are better than ever able to treat COVID. And as a medical profession, we feel pretty confident of where we are right now. So in my belief, what we need to do is have an end game plan. What is that end game? How do we get our children back to school? How do we get our businesses back open? And whatever we have to cross to get there is the plan that we need to come up with. So I think that we're cautiously optimistic and we look for a better future. And I hope that we do not go back in phases, because that is doing a step backwards instead of what the science that we have in front of us says. So let's be cautiously optimistic and create an end game so we could get our state out of this emergency and into our normal lives again.
Okay, Keith. is
Thank
that-
you. Hi.
Thank you, Dr. Garcia.
Thank you.
Anybody else on the phone?
No, sir.
Anybody else in the audience like to comment? Okay, with that.
I would, sorry for the
Go ahead,
interruption.
Keith.
I just got a notice that the governor is expected to speak at 11 o'clock this morning regarding the state's COVID response. So
Okay, so that's coming up in less than 15, so. All right, with that, is there any other business for the good of the county?
In a normal year, when they redistrict every 10 years, what is the normal process? Would that process already be started?
Who's they? You're talking about for state legislative
For
districts or
county
county?
redistricting?
County redistricting, if you look at the statute, and I don't have it in front of me, I'm working from memory, but if I recall, it says you can redistrict no more often than every 4 years, and that you do redistrict after a census. Now, there are exceptions to that. One is if you're under litigation. But keep in mind that county districts are different than state legislative districts. And so when I say exceptions, if you're under threat of litigation and you find yourself in court and the court orders that you redistrict, then that will trump the statute. So I want to be clear on that. But the other tenets that are in that same chapter in the RCW talk about compactness and boundaries, and says that the district shall be as evenly divided as possible. But our state legislative districts, like the 9th district is most of Franklin County, the 16th district, which is eastern Franklin and Walla Walla and even parts of Prosser. And then in the middle of all that, the 8th district, which is most of Kennewick Richland. Those are state legislative districts, and the process, to my knowledge, is not the same as it is for counties. The general tenets and practices are, but in terms of timelines and who draws them, they're different. There is a process by which a commission is formed at the state level for redistricting, and a number of notable individuals were participated in drawing the boundaries for the 8th, 9th, and 16th last time. So I don't know if that is helpful, but that's what you'll find in the statute.
It's my understanding that we are required to redistrict every 10 years according to the census results that come out. And therefore, with the census results coming out this fall, I would only think that it would be proper and prudent to start that process now and not wait until the census results are here. I believe that it sounds like the threat of the lawsuit is putting us in a pause. And I wouldn't want clarification, because I think we should be moving forward with public comment, and so that we can redistrict that's fair and equitable to everyone and not be putting it off until the last minute. I think that we should be moving forward as any other time of redistricting in that 10-year process as normal.
I agree with you. The part I didn't understand is when you said we.
I said, okay,
we
I guess
have
the county.
You said we have to do it every 10 years. Were you
The
referring to
county.
the state or the county?
The county.
Okay. So I'm all for redistricting now, yesterday. I've been saying this for 4 or 5 years, so there's no hesitancy on my part. I'm simply pointing out that the litigants in the pending case are calling for public meetings, which are going to be very much like what you're describing. If you set up a redistricting commission now and a commission draws a set of maps, those maps then come to us and we still decide.
I understand that.
So the input from the public, whether it comes from a byproduct of this litigation or we go do it ourselves, as I said earlier, I won't oppose any of it. I've been for redistricting for a long time. So if you want to do something right away, I'm not going to oppose it.
My question.
Long overdue.
My question would be, who do we put in charge of these public meetings so that we can get them started? The process, I've been going back through previous records of the commissioners' meetings, and, there was a process started to move forward with redistricting, and then COVID hit, which put a restriction upon every public meeting. And so I don't see how we can be penalized for following the governor's mandate that we not meet. But at this point, when we know that we have to redistrict every 10 years, according to the census results, we need to put someone in charge of organizing these meetings so that we can get public input and come up with a solution that is fair and equitable for all citizens of Franklin County.
So I think you have to redistrict whenever you're violating the law and that you don't have a legal basis or ethical basis to wait for the 10-year mark. And we've been violating the law for at least 5 years, which is why I've been pressing the point.
And aren't we at that 10-year mark currently?
We will be after the census comes. I don't think it says the 10-year mark. It says after the census. And if a census gets delayed, then it might be more than 10. If it gets accelerated, it might be less than 10. But generally, it's 10-year. But my point is, it's no more often than every 4 years, I believe, so that you don't have a board that changes it every 4 years to advantage themselves for reelection. That's why it's not no more than every 4. But if you're in violation of the law, and we clearly, obviously are and have been for years, you have a duty to do it then, not wait for a 10-year census. I'm not advocating for waiting for the census numbers. We needed to do this yesterday. But however you do it, I'm just going to be on record again and tell you that train left the station. We are no longer in control of this. And if you think we are, then I'm sorry.
I believe we are in control of it, and I believe that we should be moving forward. If we know that we have to redistrict after the census anyways, we need to be working on that now and not waiting till the results come out, because it will take us that long to get to the point that we need the data to move forward.
Well, we need to redistrict now, not after the census. That's my point.
Okay, well.
Okay, with that, we will entertain a motion. Is there a motion?
I make a motion that we move forward with organizing a committee to redistrict the county.
I second with an amendment that we make this a 9-person board, and our administrator is the organizer of this meeting. And the 9-person board would be a person from the auditor's office, a person from the Pasco Hispanic Chamber, a person from the Pasco Chamber, a person from the Farm Bureau, a person from the Cattlemen's. Each commissioner gets to pick one person, and one person from IS. That would be a 9-person committee that will be headed up by Keith Johnson. That'll be ready to move when the census report comes out.
I second the motion.
The amendment.
There's
been a motion and a second, an amendment and a second. Discussion.
I'm not even sure where to start.
Discussion on the amendment, please, first. That's got to be voted on first.
But first off, I'm assuming, Commissioner Mullen, that you're accepting the amendment to your motion?
Yes.
Okay, all right.
I accept that. So
let's set aside the amendment for a moment, because at least on first hearing, it doesn't sound unreasonable. Let's go to the main motion, which was, and if you would just go ahead and just sort of refresh, because I got sidetracked by the amendment. It was to immediately move forward with redistricting efforts.
Yes.
With creating a committee.
A committee that will meet with the citizens of Franklin County so that we can come up with a plan that's fair and equitable. But we need to be moving forward. At this point, it seems like a lot of waiting. And if we keep on waiting, we won't be ready when the census results come out. And therefore, I believe we need to have a committee now that can formulate a plan. So when we do get the result from the census, we could move forward as if it was any other normal time of year, or not of year, but of the 10-year redistricting cycle.
Okay.
So we're not behind the 8 ball waiting for who knows what's going to happen.
Okay, no, that answered the question. So we already are behind the 8 ball, by the way, by several years, but that's okay. I've made it clear that I'm not opposed to redistricting, and I won't stand in the way of whatever process you want to go and pursue. I believe your intentions are pure, so I'm not concerned about that. I'm a little concerned about the harmony here and the apparent mutual understanding of where we're going, but that's.
Are you proposing that we've been discussing this?
Well, let me just ask, has there been any
No.
discussion on this?
Absolutely
No,
not.
only in the committee meetings.
Great.
And we have discussed this
Good, thank you.
very
So-
well in depth.
So if we proceed with this and the committee comes back with a recommendation, a set of maps, everybody's understanding that they come back to this board and we have to approve them. And you know, of course, the statute requires all 3 commissioners, not just 2 commissioners for a redistricting action.
That's my understanding of how the redistricting works.
Good. Okay, well, listen,
I just feel we need to move forward.
I do too, but I'm just trying to make the point that we should have been moving forward years ago. And I think our opportunity to do it now has been lost. But hey, on the chance that I might be wrong about that, it won't hurt to run a parallel process.
Thank you.
I don't see any real harm. That's why I said I won't oppose it.
I would agree. I mean, I going through my notes, I see that, you know, on February 4th, there was discussion on redistricting. February 11th, Keith presented the redistricting plan. On February 18th, they canceled, the hearing on the redistricting plan was canceled because of lack of
Our
proper
computer went down.
posting.
Yeah.
And so it wasn't posted in Spanish. We were actually thanked by, I believe, one of the litigants for saying, hey, thank you for slowing down so we can include the Latino community.
Yeah.
And they could weigh in their comments, you know, and then COVID hit and put us at a stop. And the COVID put a stop on everything. I don't believe that that we should be penalized for following the governor's mandate when he says, you know, hey, you cannot meet. And so, you know, at this point with things opening back up, we know that the redistricting has to be done after the census. We should be ready for it.
Yeah, I get your point. And I'll just note that this was an issue long before COVID and should have been dealt with then. The only other thing that comes to mind now that I've had a moment to think about it is, you know, we're somewhere in the vicinity of half our population is of Hispanic descent. And out of that long list of interested parties, I think I only heard one representative from the Hispanic community. And I know there are several different organizations that are active with their outreach, not just the Hispanic Chamber, LULAC and others. So that would be my recommendation, is that we broaden the representation from those groups to be more equitable compared to all the other groups.
I would like to just say that the 3 commissioners each get to pick. So you could pick whoever you want. The Pasco Chamber gets to pick whoever they want. Farm Bureau gets to pick. There's been no stipulation of who gets to pick. So we don't know the makeup of this board yet. So I move to end discussion and to vote on the amendment and to vote on the motion. Do I have a second?
I second the motion.
Been a motion to end discussion and to vote. First is the amendment for the 9-person board, including those entities that I put forth. All in favor, say aye.
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 Nay.
The second is the motion to create this 9-person or this committee to draw maps for Franklin County so that the commissioners remove themselves from all appearance of gerrymandering.
So are you calling the question on discussion?
No, I'm just saying we're creating a committee, a 9-person committee to remove the commissioners. All in favor, say aye.
Mr. Chairman, point of order.
Point of order taken. Commissioner Peck.
You made a motion to end discussion, which is properly calling the question. That was on the motion that we were discussing, which is the amendment. Now
We
it's.
passed the amendment. Now we're
No,
voting
we
on the
didn't.
motion.
Your motion was to end discussion on the amendment.
We already voted on the amendment.
No, sir, you voted on.
Commissioner Mullen, did we vote on the amendment?
No, you did not. I hate to be technical, but you need to do these things properly.
Well, we have the clerk here. We could ask.
Clerk of the board, did we vote on the amendment to pass the amendment for the 9-person board as laid out?
You had a first on the original motion and a second. Then you, with the second, said you wanted to amend that, and Rocky seconded the amendment.
Right. But just recently, in a discussion, we voted on that. I brought forth the amendment. We voted on that, and now we're voting on the motion. Okay,
So.
we're bringing forth the amendment. The discussion is ended. The amendment,
Mr. Chairman, point of order.
no, the point of order is not taken because we are voting. The discussion is ended. We're going to now vote on the amendment to the motion that we have a 9-person board. Again, we're going to vote on it again, a 9-person board. You voted nay on it, Commissioner Peck, please. Commissioner Peck, I am the chairman, please. We are voting on the amendment. We're voting on the amendment right now.
Allow me to have.
9-person board
Mr. Chairman,
made
point
up
of order.
made up of the 9 people. All in favor, say aye.
Point of order. If you want it to be lawful and for it to have meaning and to stick and to be defensible, you might want to listen to me. Or not.
Commissioner Peck,
Okay.
point of order.
You made a motion to end discussion.
And we voted on that.
And we did, and it was proper. And I don't care about the language, but when people say call the question, they think they're voting on the motion. They're not. They're voting to end discussion. And that's what you said was a vote to end discussion. The motion before us was on the amendment. We voted 2 yes, 1 no.
Yes.
That ends discussion on the amendment.
Now we go to the
You
motion.
then jumped right to the motion and tried to pass or fail the motion. We didn't end discussion on the motion. And that's where you got off track. So if you want to end discussion on the motion, the primary motion, then it would be proper to call the question. There's still discussion on the primary motion.
I move to end discussion on the primary motion. Do I have a second? There's no second. Discussion.
Discussion is, I guess I want to make sure that we're clear. It's my understanding that the commission is created in whatever maps they are presented to the commissioners. It's the commissioners that pick from those maps. Am I correct?
Yes. We are the deciding factor. All we are is presented with 3 maps preferably from this commission, and we will pick or change if we so choose.
So I don't know who you were asking.
I was just asking for clarity on once the commission comes up with the plans.
So it sounds to me like there are already other details to this redistricting commission that I'm not aware of. For example, wasn't aware till just now that they're going to come up with 3 maps, not 1, not 2, not 3, not 5. That's fine.
I have no idea.
Yeah, I know. Well, apparently the chair does. He just
There was
said,
3 before when you drew them up.
No, there were 4.
Oh, you drew 4 up?
So he was going to, anyway, the point is, if you want to do the redistricting commission, that's fine. Let's just try to do it properly.
I agree.
And before we agree on what it's going to be, let's at least inform each other of, at least the basics of what it's going to be. Is it going to be 3 maps that they bring us? Are we going to agree that it has to?
That will probably be up to the commission, I guess. That would be their choice of how many maps they want to draw
Well,
up.
that would be another way to do it. It's different than what the chair said, but point is, we haven't defined any of this. But if you want to move forward, like I said, I'm in favor of redistricting. I'll try not to get in your way. I'll try to keep you legal, so what they do is legit. And when it comes down to it, whatever they come up with doesn't matter. It's up to this board.
Okay.
And we're the ones that vote on it. All three commissioners have to be here. And I'm not even gonna predict whether or not we get to the census number coming in before we redistrict. I think I've gone down that road enough. So I don't have any other comments that occur to me right now on the primary motion, and I'm comfortable ending discussion on the primary motion if that's the will of the board.
I just want to see us move forward. I want to see their community involvement. Even though as much discussion there's been on redistricting, it's very seldom that I see anybody come to the commissioners' meetings and present that that they want to be involved. And so I feel that this commission will have to reach out and invite everyone, all areas of Franklin County and the people that are in it, so we come up with something that's fair and equitable for everyone. And everybody has their choice to voice their opinion, but we do need to move forward and we get something going.
I like the sound of that. I voted no, by the way, on the amendment because I don't think it gave fair representation to all the interested parties, just on the record, so people know that.
I want it on the record that people that are involved and want to be involved need to come forward and let us know who they are and what their concerns are. And that's the whole purpose of putting the commission together, so that we can hear the voices of people in Franklin County.
Right, I'm right there with you. I
All
was
right.
talking about the membership of the redistricting committee.
Okay.
That's the one that's disproportionate, just for the record.
So with no further discussion, we're voting on the motion to create a redistricting committee. All in favor, say aye.
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 And in cases like this, it's appropriate to abstain when you see strong arguments on both sides. So I'm going to abstain on the premise that I think
Motion
it should go
carries.
forward, but the process is flawed. Thanks.
Motion carries. We are now going to Keith. You will please put that out there, and we will put this committee together and get it established so that when we get the census, that they can then put forth some maps for us to look at.
Be
Thank
a
you.
good thing for you to assign to your deputy.
With that, is there anything else for the good of the board of the county? Hearing none, this meeting is adjourned.